This is my mitre saw. It happens to be the Bosch Glide 12-inch mitre saw, and it gets a reasonable amount of use in my workshop. Pretty much every long piece will be broken down at this first, perhaps before jointing, but particularly for big work pieces like beds, even a lot of table parts, this is where I do all my cross-cutting, because it's just very difficult to do it on a cross-cut sled on the table saw. Now, there are lots of pros and cons to mitre saws, and a lot of these issues can be addressed. Dust collection is probably one of the biggest issues. The cut quality can be another issue, but a good blade and a well-tuned saw is pretty accurate. One problem that, as far as I know, all mitre saws suffer from is the fence. Now, this fence happens to be nice and square, so that's nice, and it's got some adjustable mechanisms, which again, also nice. But there's this big gap here, and that gap means small pieces, say an offcut, can go in there, get caught, cause some kickback, jamming, that sort of stuff. And it can also cause a bit of tear out on the end of the cut. So the easy way to solve that is with a auxiliary fence. Now, I've lined up my mitre saw station fence with this auxiliary fence, but I haven't actually cut it and made it a proper two-part fence just yet. Now, this will to some degree limit angled cuts and things like that, but because I'm making it out of MDF, it's plenty sacrificial. Usually I'm not really using the bevel feature of this mitre saw. It works fine, it's just not something that I do all that often, but I'll use mostly at 90-degree configuration or using the mitre part of the mitre saw. And from that point of view, the fence works just fine. Worst case, I can always remove the fence. A lot of mitre saws will have holes in the fence, and that's specifically for mounting sacrificial fences like this. If you don't have one of those on your mitre saw, you can always drill through it. It's typically going to be made out of aluminium, so it is quite easy to do with any tools that you've got on hand. As I mentioned, this is a Bosch mitre saw, and these holes for the screws aren't symmetrical. I don't know why they have done it that way, but they have. So just be aware of that when you're marking it out. As with most fixings in my workshop, I'm going to use M6 bolts. I happen to have some Phillips head M6 bolts laying around. I've got a lot of M6 hardware. If you're in Imperial land, 1/4 inch bolt will work just fine. This board is a little bit too long. That's fine, we can trim that up later. The first thing I'm going to do is just mark out where to put these bolts. Because the holes here are slotted, it gives me a little bit of leeway. I don't have to be terribly accurate. I've made this fence pretty much the same height as the fence, so it makes it a lot easier to measure down where I need to put the screws. So the head of these bolts are actually pretty good, though I am going to add a washer. Obviously we can't have this mess sticking out from the fence, so we need to counterbore these first. So I'm going to head over to the drill press and counterbore these holes and then drill a through hole. If you don't have a drill press, you can still do this. The accuracy is not as critical as other things. For example, I'm going to use a 7mm drill bit to drill out the hole for the bolt, but you can certainly use an 8mm, which gives you that little bit more wriggle room if you've got any inaccuracies. We're only dealing with 18mm material, so if you do happen to get a bit of an angle with the drill by hand, it really doesn't matter. So the auxiliary fence is attached with the 4 bolts. I'm just using wing nuts on the other side because they're secure enough and they're easy enough to move should I need to. We need to cut this to length and into its 2 pieces. So with it screwed in like that, that's what I'm going to do. So this isn't quite done just yet. If we bring this down and forward, well, for a start, it hits on part of the saw shroud. If I move it a bit further forward, it hits the saw's dust collection thing. So we need to cut away some of it around here. Now, roughly, we're going to come down about like and do that. I've actually traced out the existing fence on the back, and that will give us a rough guideline of what will clear all the bits and pieces. And that's done. As you can see, this comes out, doesn't hit the rubber flap thing there. And by no means is this the last thing I'll do to this miter saw. I need to build a dust shroud because the dust is, well, not great, but that is down the track. If you like what you've seen in either this video or the series on the miter saw station so far, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, that sort of stuff. And if you wish to support me in other ways, there is Patreon, there are affiliate links through Amazon below, or the plans for this miter saw station are now available on my website. Thanks for watching.